Hey everybody, this is Raul Gonzalez.
And I'm Oscar Ibieta.
And we are Medicare Agent IQ. We are a podcast that's really been put together to help agents to be more successful. Whether you are a long-term agent, you've been doing this for a lot of years and you already know what you're doing to keep sharpening those tools, or whether you're a new agent or someone that's struggling, our goal is just really to give as much information as we can to help agents to be successful.
Yeah, no matter your path, I feel like there's a lot of good things that you can take away from the things that we talk about. And so we got some exciting things that we're going to talk about here today. You know, you've got it there in your hands. What do you got there?
Yeah, it's a book that changed my life. So I'm looking into the camera right now. Like, this book changed my life. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's something I just kind of wanted to talk about, but to go over some of the principles that have helped me kind of shape how I do things to be successful, not only in sales, but in life.
Yeah, things that you can apply to all. And for the record, I want everyone to know that this is a book that I've never read. So This is going to be interesting. But you actually told me, hey, I don't know that you need to read this book.
Yeah, you know, so I want to just give some backstory real quick. Yeah. So one of the reasons that this book has been so impactful for me is because I needed it. Not that I struggled to make friends, but there was it was always like, well, if I wanted you to be my friend, I could get you to be my friend. But to be real honest, there was a time in my life where I was very opinionated, had a very strong opinion, where I wasn't the kind of person that you would enjoy being around. If we got into a debate, it was kind of, I grew up watching 8 Mile, right? Like, so I'm like, I wanted to get you to a point where I proved you so wrong that you stopped talking.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, you have nothing left to say, kind of leave you like Papa Dot. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know that the people who are watching this, everybody's seen 8 Mile. So yeah. I had to bring that up.
Classic.
Yeah. But I was kind of that person, and I was just like, I was a person that to be real honest, that I wouldn't so much like right now. Had a very strong political opinion that I felt for some reason that everybody needed to know. And I felt like that people had to know what I was thinking, know my opinion. And if they were wrong, I had to make a point. Like, if you and I had a conversation, I would have to make a point that I was wrong. Yeah. Even to the point where I had a friend, and I told her, we were going back and forth, and I was like, look, if I'm right, if I prove that I'm right, you have to sing a song, Raul is right and I am wrong, multiple times. So it kind of just became this thing. But that's that kind of, even though it was said so lightheartedly, that kind of shows the heart of where I was mentally.
Was there a point that you just decided, you know what, like, I'm extremely opinionated and I'm always forcing my opinion on other people, I need to do something about that? Or what led you to this book?
Yeah, really. So my old director, he was a director over at Humana. He'd given this book to everybody just as a way to be successful in sales. He was like, hey guys, you really need to read this book. So you know how it is when you work at a company, some people read the book, others just kind of put it right away on their desk and be like, yeah, I'll get to it at some point. But I started reading it and just really, wanting to advance my career. Yeah. And so I talked to him, and he said, hey, look, honestly, I think that if you read this book, there will be some changes that you make. So I know that he knew me, and so he knew that there's some things probably that I could benefit from changing. And so just to go over, I want to go over again, it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. My goodness, it's probably 100 years old. Is
it that old?
Yeah.
Wow.
It is, but the great part of it is, to be honest, these principles, they don't change from all of these years. Yeah. So again, this book really, I would say, changed the trajectory of my life. And I find it, right now we have an agency, about 225 agents total that are contracted with our agency. I find it hard to believe that if I was still that same opinionated person, always wanted to prove people wrong, always have my phone out so I could prove people wrong, I find it very hard to believe that I would be in the same position that I'm in.
I don't know that I'd be here with you.
Right. Yeah. No, really, you wouldn't. And so, and every once in a while, like that stuff still comes out of me, but there's the principles in this book really kind of put me in a different place. And so I really thought it'd be cool if we go through some of them, not all of them, and talk about it, but just to kind of give you guys just some of the principles in here. One of them is, it says you can't win an argument. You can't. And when I got to that point in the book, I was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Like, that's what I try to do all the time. I'm all about winning arguments and things like this. And another one, if you're wrong, admit it. You know, there's a lot of times where people want to make excuses, right? So like, if they make a mistake, they do. I remember even recently there was an individual where she felt like I wronged her, and she was a person that was very important to me. Frankly, there's probably a valid reason why I did things the way that I did. But in our conversation, really because of this book, I knew that in that moment she needed I'm sorry. Not I'm sorry, but by the way, this is kind of why I made this decision. It was, I'm sorry. And it was a principle that I found in this book, and really ultimately led to our relationship being restored because of that. It could have gone the opposite way if I wanted to, you know, hold strong to that. So there's that, and just other ones, a formula that will work wonders for you. So what everybody wants, where he talks about, you know, just kind of when you're getting to know people, the most important word in every person's vocabulary is me, followed by I. People want to talk about themselves. Right. And so kind of learning those things, and from this book, I was really able to learn not only how to win friends and influence people, because that's a big benefit, but really how to make people feel good about themselves and show people their worth. And I learned that all with the time going through this book. So.
In college, you made me think of something. In college, I had this professor. He said, you want to know the best way to get somebody to like you? Give them an opportunity to brag about themselves. Give them an opportunity to talk about themselves. And I thought, that's it? But it's such a simple thing. But you're right. The first words that people like to say are me and I. They like to talk about themselves. They like to have that platform, the opportunity to kind of toot their horn. Right?
Yeah, people love that. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay being on the receiving end of that. I want to hear what they want to brag about. I want to hear it. And not only that, but I want to celebrate what you want to celebrate. If there's something that you think is really cool about you that you've done, I want to celebrate that with you, and just be like, and genuinely celebrate that with you. Yeah.
Which is our first talking point that we have. There we principle go. Number one.
Absolutely.
So showing genuine interest in others. Explain that truly caring about clients and their needs, right? If we're applying this on the Medicare side, when you're sitting at the kitchen table with somebody and you're looking to make a sale and you want to walk away from a sale, you've got to show that you genuinely care about the individual. So being on the receiving end of that and showing the person that you care, that you're not just a salesman that's in there that's trying to make a sale. It's not a transaction. It's not transactional. It's got to be a relationship that you're in there and that you want to build.
Yeah, and what I find is that there are people who will pretend to be genuinely interested. And here's the secret to all of it. You can't appear to be genuinely interested in what someone's saying if you're not.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to make the decision to take an interest in what they're saying. I want to stop for a minute and actually care about what you're talking about. So there's people that that all they do is work on their lawn, like me. Like, that's not all I do, but that's one of the things that I really like. And so, if
you like when I call you and I ask you a question about my lawn,
feels good. It feels good. But here's the thing: when you spend that much time working on keeping your grass green, which mine is probably the greenest that you'll find, but you find someone, they do that. The minute you start talking about that, that's something you can genuinely be interested in. Is oh, tell me about that. Just kind of like what you do, right? You start asking questions and things like, let me go back. The reason that I told Oscar I really didn't think that he needed the How to Win Friends and Influence book is because I feel like you really got that nailed down. Like when I first met Oscar, and even up until you started having until you had your son, you were with people all the time, and not just like the same people, like different people all the time. You're very good with people naturally. So I'll say that some of the things that we're going to go over here, some people just naturally have it. Others, it takes a little bit to learn those things. So, but yeah, showing genuine interest in people to me is going to be one of those biggest things. But again, it's actually kind of finding common ground, right? Like finding the things that you can take a genuine interest in. You know, I guarantee you, in any conversation that you have with somebody, there are things that you will be able to find that you're like, oh yeah, I actually really interested in what you have to say, even though it's not really your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a sports guy. Yeah. So whenever early on in my career, I remember walking into homes and I'd try to find some kind of way to talk sports, because that was easy for me. It was natural. So here, based in San Antonio, we're big Spurs fans. It's the only pro sports team that we have. So it was always, hey, did you catch the game? Let's talk some Spurs. But then you run into situations where people, nah, I don't care about sports. And it's like, okay, what's next? And so it was actually something that I had to work on, and I had to work towards finding common ground. So you start looking at pictures on the wall, you know, anything that they have on display in their home is going to tell you what it is that they're interested in. And I bet there's something there that you can find that's going to be some common ground. Again, so you find that common ground, you show not just an interest, but a genuine interest in that, and you give them an opportunity to talk about it. That's just going to kind of warm things up for you when you're in that appointment, because they're a complete stranger, and you want to begin that relationship, and you want to get off to a good, nice, warm start.
Yeah, no better way than asking people questions about themselves to warm up that relationship. The next principle that we're going to highlight here is smile and be friendly. Yeah. And I think that's, gosh, where you just kind of coming where I come from, like you don't see guys smile like a whole lot, right?
No.
But what I've started doing, and just it's kind of come full circle for me, where it used to be like almost never smiling to. I was talking with she's a director for our upline, and she was like, yeah, that's the thing about you, Raul, you're always smiling. I was like, really? Like I didn't even know, like, and it's just because I kind of just carry this disposition now where I'm smiling. Like you got a lot to think about this. If you're listening to this and you're here in the United States, you got a lot to smile about, right? There's a lot, like even regardless of our struggle, regardless of where we're at, we're still in a pretty good position, right? Yep. Like we're not living in a village somewhere without shoes. You're in a good position. There's a lot to smile about, a lot to be happy about. And I think that smile, like when you walk into a place, you can't help, for the most part, I can't help if somebody smiles at me, that I end up smiling back, right? Yeah. Like it's just this thing that you do, and regardless. And so that is an energy that you bring to the table with your clients.
It's a choice you make on a daily basis, because it's easy to smile on the good days.
Right.
Nobody has a problem doing that, but it's those days where you didn't get any sleep last night and you didn't have your coffee this morning and you're just falling behind, and it's just a tough day, or whatever the situation may be, whatever struggles you may be going through. You want to make sure that you make it a point to still smile. You don't want people to, you want to be able to turn it on and be able to smile, because that smile could go a long way. Again, whether you're trying to create relationships, that if you're trying to network to build your business, you want to be a smiling face. You don't want to walk into a room and have this serious blank stare on your face. Who wants to be friends with that person versus the person who walks into the room and is smiling?
Right.
Right. They look a little more friendly. They look a little more welcoming. So smile. But also with your clients, when you're there, you want to have a smiling face. You don't want to be serious. You want to show them that you're a real human being, and that you have that side to you where, yes, I'm here and I'm working, but I'm also a human, and I want to have that relationship with you, and I'm going to bring a smiling face. Do you want to do business with somebody who's not smiling?
Not in the slightest. I'll tell you, man, not in the slightest. I want people who are just a joy to be around. That's like, even kind of when I'm buying a car, or when I'm doing something.
Not a fan of the car buying process.
Oh, not at all. Like we've talked about this
Hate it.
A lot. It's difficult. But like, kind of think about, I have a real estate agent that I have worked with for years, and he has bought and sold houses for us through the years. And the one thing that I always think about him, and the reason I always go back to him, is that this individual, he's always smiling at us. He's always friendly with us, and always asking us questions about, hey, how are your kids? Tell us about what's going on. And not just like, hey, how are your kids? And then stop listening. So that's what I want to talk about next. Is the next point we want to highlight is listen actively. And so we want to talk about where, and this goes back to taking a genuine interest, but even more, it's taking time to fully listen to what the individual is saying. And this, I'll be honest, is sometimes can be a struggle for me.
Same here.
When someone starts giving directions, I immediately stop listening. Do you ever have, like, especially, you know, when we run appointments as insurance agents and you start talking to a senior and you know that all I need is your address and I'll be able to find your house. Right. But seniors a lot of times still want to give directions. Hey, you're going to take a right at the Valero and you're going to go through. And so I kind of started doing this thing where I immediately stopped listening until it turns out that I probably should have listened every once in a while. Like you're like, oh man, when you get out, you could be like some country area where you're like, oh man, they did tell me to turn at the at that red barn. Yeah. But outside of that, even when I'm in a conversation with somebody and we're talking, naturally I may start thinking about other things. I might thinking about like going and seeing my kids after work or doing anything like that. And so one of the things that I try to make sure to do is kind of come back to that. I want to actively listen to what people are talking about. I want to be engaged by what they're saying. I want to give them nonverbal cues and let them know, hey, I'm listening. I'm nodding my head when you're talking, and I want to listen to it. They say something, I want to be smiling when they say it. I want to think, and that's how you kind of actively listen.
Yeah. Listening was something that I don't know. It was something that I learned that I needed to improve on. And you want to know where I learned that? Toastmasters, which shout out to Toastmasters, but it was something that I read in a book, not this book, it was a different book. They spoke of Toastmasters. I know you had recommended it to me as well. And so I went there because I wanted to improve my public speaking skills. But little did I know that one of the biggest takeaways that I had from Toastmasters was I became a better listener.
Right.
Because in those Toastmasters classes, they give you certain tasks and that require you to pay attention to what's going on. And so I became a much better listener. So it translates to not only to your work life, but to your everyday life. This is going to help you with the relationships that you're trying to build. But going back to those directions that you were getting from that individual, right? They said, hey, I know that I can just plug it into my GPS and I can get there. But that senior is going to say, well, you've got to go this way and you've got to go that way. I may just make a note, even though what I do is I actually type in the address to my GPS. And if I can locate the home, I know exactly, okay, I know where it's at. But then I continue to listen and I try to do a better job of not zoning them out. And when they say, hey, make sure you turn at that red barn, which is exactly where my GPS was taking me, I'll show up to their house and I say, yeah, I saw the red barn and I took a right. Yeah. Even though my GPS was taking me in that direction, it tells that individual that I was listening to them when they were giving me those directions.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to the next point, which is make others feel important.
Yeah, I want to say something real quick. I have another piece that I want to talk about on the listening is when you're out. Let's say you're working an event and you're talking to individuals and you're trying to set something up that's going to lead to an appointment. One of the best things, if you just let a person talk and you listen to what they're saying, it's going to tell you everything that they need. It's going to tell you everything that you need so that you can put yourself in a position to make a sale. If they're talking about the things they like about their plan, great. But if you let them keep talking, they're going to talk about the things that they don't like about their plan. And one of the things, there's an agent who came on with us. He's been with us for about 7 years now. Early on in his career, he had trouble listening because he was just so caught up in what his next line was going to be that he didn't take the time to listen. So
he'd miss all these, like
all the cues, all the cues that were being given to him. Exactly. So if a person is saying, you know, let's say there's a new benefit. Let's say silver sneakers was a new thing at the time, right? He was ready to talk about silver sneakers. But if that person was talking to him about how they just, they haven't been able to get into the dentist because they don't know where to go with their insurance, but this agent was just ready to talk about that new silver sneakers benefit. It's like, hey, let's take a step back. Rather than having that next line prepared, listen to what they're saying. And if you let them talk enough, they're going to tell you exactly what they need. And as long as you're listening, you're going to be able to have that conversation with them and put yourself in a position to give you a good opportunity to make a sale.
Yeah, that's important in presenting is really just that's the biggest part, because they're going to tell you, like, in the first 15 minutes of your appointment, before you even start talking benefits, they're going to tell you so much about what they're not. I remember one time, I don't know, I'm debating whether or not I share this, but there was a time that I was in an appointment, kind of not listening. This is why I was not listening, and he mentioned that, I want to say he was schizophrenic. And he'd mentioned that to me, and then we were talking later, and he mentioned something that was something that was frustrating. I was like, oh man, doesn't that make you crazy? Like, doesn't it drive you crazy when people do that? And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. But really what that comes to is two things. One is not listening, but then also maybe not thinking before you speak.
Right.
throw that one in there. But let's go ahead and talk about how to make others feel important. Why that would matter in an appointment. So I remember there was a time, and it really stuck with me. And so these are the kind of things. I was meeting. This was like 15 years ago. I was meeting my pastor of my church, and I showed up, and he was about 10 minutes late. And so I just kind of waited there the 10 minutes. So he pulls up kind of like real fast into his driveway. I was meeting him at his house, and I'm getting out of the car, and he was like, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. I was like, it's 10 minutes, no big deal. He's like, it is a big deal. I'm sorry. He's like, that's not cool. Your time is valuable, and I'm sorry I was late. And then we moved on. It wasn't like, he didn't touch on it anymore, but he was like, it is a big deal. And that really stuck with me. I'm like, to me, it wasn't. And really, you know, I'm used to people being late, so it's not that big of a deal. But how important do you think I felt in that moment when he said that? And kind of thinking, and depending on the day that you have, how unimportant do you feel when somebody's 10 minutes late? Right. And so just things like that. So you can't sometimes control that you're going to be late, but you can sure make someone feel important by apologizing and say, hey, look, I know how valuable your time is. I'm sorry that I was late. Please forgive me. Of course I'll forgive you, you know, but it just depends on how you approach that and how important that you can make someone feel. I think another way that you can make people feel important would be to take their calls, right? So a lot of times, agents, even if they're not with a customer, will let it go to voicemail, kind of screen their calls, see what the customer wants, and then they'll make a decision on how fast they'll give them a call back. But how much more important is it? Like, man, I'm picking up that phone, and a lot of times this happened to me earlier today, and obviously, like, I deal more now with agents than I do with seniors, but kind of in the same respect. I got a call, and immediately I said, hey, I'm so sorry. I do want to let you know I've only got like 3 or 4 minutes, but let's talk. What do you know, what is it? And so I let them know ahead of time, look, I'm so sorry. I only have just a couple minutes, but shoot, let me see what it is. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, I guess we'll talk later. It was kind of a long conversation. They're like, okay, well, let me put down a time. Let's get that as a priority. And so how important did that agent feel when I'm going to stop what I'm doing, knowing that I'm super busy, knowing I've got things going on, but they're important enough where not only am I going to take that call, but I'm going to make sure to get a time on the book, so they're not having to leave a voicemail and all of that.
Right.
So
just before we walked in here to record, I got a phone call from a client and I had no idea what it was going to be. But rather than putting that phone call off, I said, let me take this phone call and see what's going on. And turns out this client of mine just got into the donut hole and was trying to get an explanation of it, because she called the insurance and they explained it to her, but in a way that didn't make sense. And so I just took the time to re-explain what the donut hole is, how it works. And once we finished having that conversation, she felt so much better. Obviously nobody feels good about being in the donut hole,
right?
But she felt a lot better that I actually took the time to explain how that works, even though they had already done that for her. And so as we were wrapping up the phone call, she actually said to me, Oscar, thank you so much for your time. I know you're real busy, so I appreciate you taking my call. I'm not making this up. She really said that to me. Yeah. And so how much does that mean to her? What is that? You think she's going to be loyal to me? You think she's going to stick with me for a long time? She's probably going to refer people to me, which she has already. Right. But it leads to so much more. There's so much more than just doing it at that surface level. I want to make you feel important because Raul and Oscar said that, from this book, that's an important thing. No, it has a snowball effect, and it can lead to a lot more good things for you.
So many good things. I cannot I can't count how many times that it's impacted and had direct impact when I'm making someone feel super important, that it benefits us. And let's continue to do that. I think using people's names is a big one. Like whenever you meet somebody, I would always go out of my way to try to use their name. And here's a big one to me, is pronouncing it the way that they introduce themselves. How important does that make someone feel? Yeah. Like I'm taking that, like, especially like if it's a name that you're maybe not comfortable saying, like if it's a harder name, or even just when somebody introduces themselves as Michael and everyone calls them Mike, but when you introduce yourself to them, they said Michael. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I'm going to address him, is I'm going to call him Michael. There's an agent that I work very close with. He's very important. He's an MGA. He's very important to me, and he introduces himself as Daniel. And he's Hispanic, and that's how he introduces himself. Everyone calls him Daniel. So anytime I'm in a conversation with him, I call him Daniel. And it's just, I want him to know he's important to me. That's my friend. And regardless, I'm gonna refer to you the way that you refer to yourself. Yeah. And it just goes a long way to show people, hey, look, I value you. You're an important person to me. And because of that, I'm gonna take the time to pronounce, even if it's not my strength. Spanish is not my strength. I may look like it, but I
looks at the camera.
Yeah, but I don't speak Spanish, and so, but I'm going to go out of my way to try to pronounce it the way that you do. If you pronounce your name in Spanish, I'm gonna go out of my way to do that. And so things like that go a long way to show people you're an important person to me. Yeah, I think we're going to continue to do that. And I guess the last one here that we really want to touch on is win people over by agreeing. There's a way to do that without kind of losing your point. So like if you're in an argument, you're trying to convince someone, hey, this is the right way, you have to find the common ground, things you do agree on, in order to get to a point where maybe you can prove your point, or maybe kind of persuade them into the way that you're doing things. That really helps with insurance, right? So kind of helping people understand, like, even with their Medicare Advantage plan, wow, you've made a great choice. Most people here in San Antonio, we'll use San Antonio, they're choosing between the United Healthcare HMO and the Humana HMO. So you made a great choice by picking Humana. Let me show you why this United Healthcare one makes a little bit more sense. Right. So kind of giving people some validation in importance of, hey, you made a great choice, but let me just show you this other one. Nobody wants to feel like, oh man, you've made a bad choice. And I've had that happen to me. It doesn't feel good. You're trying to make me feel stupid for making the decision that you did. That's not going to make me want to buy from you. If anything, it makes me want to kind of keep you at arm's length.
It's like an insult, right? If you say, why did you choose Humana? Because you're in there and you're trying to make a sale, and they have Humana. Why did you choose Humana?
Yeah,
and that's going to make me put up that wall. But instead, you actually you paid them a compliment, and that's going to make me feel good. Like, wow, I made a good choice.
Yeah. How many people have ever, like, and I guess there's some, and I guess maybe that's that. But how many people have ever have they've gone through and been like, yeah. I'm sure you are right. I made a terrible decision, but that does not work. It's not going to help people. So let's do that. Let's agree with them, even if we have a different option. Let's agree to let people know, hey, you've done a great job. I knew that it's going to be difficult trying to get through this book. There's so many points. There's so many points and so much to it. But I just wanted to kind of go through. These are the important things. These are the things that are important in what we do. But I would tell people, read these books. Read this book. Get to know a little bit more. This book changed my life. Could probably do so much more for you, just in general, not just in insurance. But we're here trying to help people for insurance. But there's so many things that life feels more fun when the people around you enjoy being around you, and there's not always this kind of even I'm a super competitive person, but all of our main competitors here in San Antonio have a great relationship with. That competitiveness goes so far as I just I want to win, but it's for me. It's not against you. It's for me. And so just even things like that, let's make decisions that are going to help us in our relationships, help us and put people kind of in a better, put people in a good position with us, to have good opinion about you and things like that. So again, How to Win Friends and Influence People is the book. And so we really appreciate that we get to come in and into your car for 30 minutes on your drive or whatever it is. If you have any questions or any kind of topics that you want us to touch on, feel free to shoot me an email. It's rgonzalez, RGONZALEZ at tmsbrokerage.com, T like Tom, M like Mike, S like Sierra. And don't hesitate to reach out. Any questions that you have, any comments, feel free to shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. We've got Medicare Agent IQ. We've got a LinkedIn. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and a Twitter. So reach out to us one way or the other. We look forward to hearing more from you. So thank you so much.
See you next time.